welcome Mr. Shaktikanta, one of the chief architects of Budget 2017, which we at the Times Network call our tryst with destiny. Thanks very, very much for sparing time and being with us, Mr. Das. I first want to talk to you and congratulate you on what a big thumbs up you've really gotten. As far as the Indian markets are concerned, they seem to be breathing a big sigh of relief. But a quick clarification before I throw it to a star-studded panel that will be asking you questions over the next few minutes. Just a quick clarity. Is there any review of the LTCG scheme, LTCG definition? Is the LTCG tax being reintroduced? Any form of changes in the short-term capital gains tax? Those are the clarifications that we would want from you at this stage, sir.
Don't cut to Modi. Don't.
No, I think if you have listened to the finance minister's speech carefully, so far as the long-term capital gain is concerned, it is mostly in the area of properties, where I think the period of holding has been really, reduced from 3 years to 2 years. So there is nothing more than what is contained in the budget speech, and in any case the finance bill is now in the public domain. So there is nothing of that sort. But having said that, let me mention just to, as an opening remark, I think overall if you look at it, the budget is strong with regard to the fiscal numbers. The budget is strong with regard to the macroeconomic underlying basis of the budget. And the budget is also very strong with regard to reforms. I think that is something which should not be lost sight of. In fact, I was listing out the number of, I have listed out the number of reform measures which have been announced in the budget speech, and there are about 11 or 12 of them. I mean, starting with abolition of the FIPB, I think it should be seen as a huge reform, and plus also in the agricultural sector, we are talking in terms of introducing a model law on contract farming, on removing perishables from the APMC market. So on the whole, if you see, the budget is very strong on reforms, and that should not be lost sight of.
Mr. Das, I'm pleased to tell you that we've got a stellar lineup right here in ET Now, from Ms. Chanda Kochar to some of the biggest market voices. Jim O'Neill also joining us live from London. But I'm going to ask you one question before we move on. The divestment target, very ambitious target of over 70,000 crores. However, and while one would be skeptical given the track record, the reason one is a little more optimistic is the statement made by the finance minister. One gets an impression that the entire issue of divestment is going to be seen in fresh light. Can you throw some more light on how is the government going to go about divestment in FY18?
You see, with regard to divestment, the listing of CPSE is a clear roadmap. With regard to the listing of CPSE, a revised mechanism with timelines is going to be spelled out. So there is a list of central public sector enterprises which are expected to list themselves in the market, and timelines will be fixed for listing them. And talking about the target, let's not forget that this year also the general insurance companies are going to be listed. Then there will be the listing of 3 major public sector enterprises in the railways sector, the IRFC, the IRCTC, and these companies have huge valuations. So therefore, putting together the target which has been fixed, about 70 or 71,000 crores, is very much achievable. It is very much within the reach. Plus, listing of several other public sector enterprises are also going to take place. So therefore, 71,000 crores is a very carefully arrived figure, and it will be done.
Okay, it's a carefully arrived figure. It will be done. I'm going to first toss it to the economists in the panel and then to the market experts. Swaminathan Iyer, consulting editor ET Now, and I know you read his columns very carefully, Mr. Shaktikanta Das. Swami, your question for Mr. Das.
Yeah, first, there was an earlier budget speech where Arun Jaitley talked about asset recycling. The idea that, roads and ports and so on can be sold in order the proceeds can be used for fresh ones. You seem to have abandoned, there's no mention of it, there's nothing of implementation. Has that been abandoned? Again, Niti Aayog had identified a list of companies for divestment. There is no mention of any of them. Has that also been abandoned?
No, you have mentioned 2 things. Neither of it has been abandoned. With regard to the monetization of assets belonging to various public sector undertakings, this year also in this budget also the finance minister has announced amendment to the Airport Authority of India Act for monetization of land assets. Now, talking about the last year's budget announcement and what is to be worked, what is the outcome of that, there is an announcement with regard to the amalgamation of certain PSUs, and we have announced the formation of an oil major. So therefore, in the oil sector, some of the CPSUs, you will find that they will get, it is under consideration. The proposal is to have them amalgamated and constitute and form a oil major. And also with regard to monetization of land assets, a committee was appointed, and the committee has given its report with regard to the modalities that will be followed for monetization of land assets. So that is very much very much on track. And the second one you mentioned was about, if you could just mention, that was about, could you repeat that second point also, the second one where you think that it has not been followed up?
Mr. Das, we also have with us Jim O'Neill, the man who coined the acronym BRIC, and Jim was hoping that you would have a rather tough question for Mr. Das.
I guess my obvious question, Mr. Das, nice to speak to you. My immediate question is, how resilient do you think India currently is in terms of the economy from international forces? As I'm sure well, I know you know, many international investors often think India has some advantages as being reasonably insulated from the traumas around the world, and with the new president in Washington and some very unpredictable policies, I suspect some people might be more inclined towards thinking favorably about India than usual, but only if they believe that India is internally very resilient. And I wondered what you thought about that, particularly in the context of your budget.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite, there was some problem with regard to it was not very clearly audible. Could you repeat? Supriya, can you just rephrase the question, please?
Right. Mr. Das, what he was asking was, how resilient do you think is the Indian economy in light of all that's happening around the world, the taking over of the Trump administration, the world getting more protectionist? How resilient do you believe is the Indian economy?
Okay, I mean, so far as Indian economy is concerned, I mean, of course, we cannot say that no economy is today not impacted by developments around the world. Obviously, India is becoming more and more globalized, and we are not in favor of protectionism. In fact, we feel that there should be open trade across nations. There should be free movement of people across borders with free movement of professionals. But having said that, let me also mention that Indian economy, as you know, I mean, these are well known that we have a strong domestic market. Low domestic savings have also now picked up thanks to the domestic savings have also now picked up thanks to the demonetization drive which the government has launched. So therefore, Indian economy, although not totally insulated, but I think it is quite resilient to withstand the various uncertainties which are now sort of happening all over the world. And I mean, that is how I would like to react.
Mr. Das, now we've got a whole host of market experts, some of the biggest investors and CEOs of top brokerage firms as well joining us on the panel, and they all have questions for you because I'm sure you care about the market verdict. The market has given a resounding thumbs up to this budget. I'm going to start off with Rashesh Shah, CEO of Edelweiss, who's been with us through this Budget Day live coverage on ET Now. Mr. Rashesh Shah, your question for Shaktikanta Das.
Yeah, I want to start off by complimenting Dr. Das, I think, on a fairly good, a set of things in the budget, a lot of good trade-offs to be made, and I think the answer is there in front of us. Good for equity markets, bond markets, currency markets, which is huge. The one question I have, Dr. Das, is about FIPB. We have abolished FIPB. We said we're going to liberalize FDI. How will this get implemented? Will it mean that everything will be under automatic route and the slabs will be there, and as long as it falls in the slabs, it will all be automatic, or are we going to have some other structure for FDI investments in India?
Yeah, before I reply to Mr. Rashesh Shah, Supriya, I'll be very keen to know the rating of Swaminathan Iyer also, because that's very important. So if you could also come in and give his rating after some time, that will be really good.
I promise I'm going to get you that rating in 3 seconds from now, as long as you answer the question first on FIPB.
Okay. Yeah, you know, the FIPB, there are two separate things. One is that the FIPB as an institution, as you know, it was set up in the late 90s and then it has had a long history. Now we have reached a position where government is going to abolish FIPB, and the finance minister has also said that a roadmap for the same will be announced in the next few months. So the exact modalities of how, you know, basically the proposals which require government approval, they come to FIPB. How those proposals are to be dealt with is something which has to be dealt with. I would like to recollect here what we did with regard to, you know, some of the NBFCs. Like for example, NBFCs were earlier, FDI was permitted in certain limited number of sectors. But then we liberalized it, government liberalized it by saying that sectors which are regulated, where there is a regulator in place, those things don't require government or the FIPB approval. It can straightaway be cleared by the regulator, whether it is the Reserve Bank, SEBI or the IRDA, or as the case may be. So the roadmap for the same will be spelled out. With regard to the FDI policy, there are almost everything has now been liberalized. There are only a few items which require government approval. They are under examination, and as and when a decision is taken, they will be announced. But at the moment, there is no proposal to put everything on the automatic route. Let me clarify that, because some cases would still, like for example, defense. There is a huge security issue involved in all defense related or all telecom related investments. So government will examine and come out with liberalization over a period of time in the various other sectors also. So far as FIPB is concerned, we have to have a simpler mechanism of dealing with proposals, applications for FDI which require government approval, how they will be dealt with. So that mechanism will be spelled out, I would expect, in the next couple of months.
Looks like markets are taking some kind of solace and confidence from the clarifications that are coming in from one of the chief architects of the budget, Shaktikanta Das. But Swami, Mr. Das is very keen on your rating, and how would you rate budget 2017 then?
5.5 out of 10.
I'm not so sure if that makes him happy.
I think last year also you gave the similar number.
Swami, you know, Mr.
I think we will have a, I think we will have a one-to-one with Mr. Swaminathan Iyer probably. Thereafter he will change his views, because there are many more things which I would like to explain.
Okay. Sure.
And let me just take one more minute with regard to the borrowing numbers. I think the markets will be very interested to know about it. Now the net borrowing, there is some, people are asking question. The net borrowing will be 3.48 lakh crores. 3.48 lakh crores. After taking into account the buyback of government bonds which we are going to do in the current year. So after that it is 3.48 lakh crores. So in other words, 3.48 lakh crores of liquidity will be taken out from the market by the government. The rest will go back by way of redemptions, or it will go back by way of government buying back existing bonds which are already there in the market.
Right. I know Swami's verdict may be a little disappointing, but I can tell you Nifty is now up 100 points. That's a verdict that I'm sure you care about as well. But Swami is hard to please, as we all know, isn't it? Nilesh Shah of Envision Capital has a question for you as well. Mr. Shaktikanta Das. Nilesh, over to you.
Mr. Das,
what are the ratings?
What's your rating to
my
start?
rating, 8 out of 10.
No.
No, but Mr. Das, congratulations on an excellent budget. I think this has truly been a very all-rounded budget. I just have one question on the universal basic income concept of UBI, which has got enough discussed. I just want to understand what's the government's thinking on that. Is it still premature to kind of introduce a UBI concept, or is the government having a very different view or an opinion on that? Because that was being looked forward to push up growth and to boost consumption and to give more money in the hands of households. So what's the current thinking on that?
You see, it is an idea which has been sort of placed in public domain through the economic survey for discussion, for public debate. But let us also remember that the subject is far more complex than many of us would imagine. I mean, then how do you deal with the subsidies which are there? Are you going to withdraw and replace all subsidies? How do you deal with the subsidies given by the state governments? So there are complex issues, and so far as the government is concerned, at the moment, no view has been taken on the same. It is a subject which has been now floated, which has been sort of placed in the public domain for discussion, for more ideas, for more suggestions. Let it be debated in the public space.
So that's one last question before we let you go. It's not very often that an architect of the budget indulges us right after the budget has been presented. Mr. Mukesh Bhutani, one of the most respected voices in Indian taxation, has a question for you, sir.
I firstly won't rank the budget because I need to see the fine print. But based on the speech and like everything, you have good, bad and ugly. I would say there are several goods, few bads, none that I could think of which is ugly. Mr. Das, I have a question for you on the tax rates. I think you took everyone by surprise by reducing the corporate tax rate for medium and small enterprises to 25%. My question is, and I know that there were revenue considerations, my question is this the new normal, or are you going to still stick to the commitment of bringing it down for all taxpayers? My other question is on individuals that you have levied an additional surcharge of 10%. Is that again a new normal, or will the government stick to its broader agenda that was laid down in 2015 to reduce the tax rates for all forms of taxpayers to 25%?
No, you see, if you see the budget of 2015-16, the commitment which the finance minister made was with regard to the corporate tax, where he said that, our corporate tax rates are higher compared to our neighbors and competitors in this part of the world. So the commitment was with regard to the corporates, where the rates now have been brought down in respect of companies with a turnover of up to 50 lakhs of rupees per year. And this is a roadmap. I think Revenue Department has already spelled out a roadmap for phasing out of exemptions. So phasing out of exemptions and reduction of corporate tax will have to move in tandem. So one would see in the next 2 or 3 years, one would see more and more exemptions going out, and the corporate tax rates also. I mean, there is a commitment. So both have to move in tandem.
Mr. Das, I have one final question. I know you have a very, very busy schedule ahead of you, but why is it, and some of us were taken by surprise, that the GST will be a reality in the course of in this calendar year? Why is it that threshold rationalization has not happened for other rates, whether it's excise, whether it's service tax? Why is it that it has not happened, and when do you plan to really do this? Because GST will have to be an eventual reality.
If you see the budget speech, the finance minister has made a commitment that GST will be implemented from 1st July, and the various states, the state governments and the central government officials, they are working together. Broadly, there is a commonality of thinking with regard to the tax rates, and as and when the GST legislation is tabled in the parliament and in the state legislatures, you will see that the rates will be spelled out at that time. But I think there has been a tremendous amount of convergence so far with regard to the rates.
Right. Mr. Das, one quick clarification on the GDP growth rate that you've assumed before we say a big thank you to you. What is the GDP growth rate that you've assumed in your budget arithmetic, nominal GDP?
Nominal for next year, we have assumed 11.75%.
11.75%. Thank you so much, Mr. Shaktikanta.
Yeah, current year we have assumed 11% nominal. Next year we have assumed 11.75% nominal GDP growth.
11.75. Okay, we'll probably have more questions for you later in the day on how the numbers add up. But thank you so much for joining us with that perspective. Chief Architect of the Budget Department of Economic Affairs Secretary Shaktikanta Das, live and exclusive on ET Now.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ET Now, and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ET Now Live. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ET Now.